What's up guys? So in this video we're going back to your home training, bodyweight training, hamstrings today. And one of the issues we have with hamstrings with limited equipment is there's very few exercises we can do. So I'm going to show you what you're able to do based on what you have at home. There's going to be a few variations if of course you can add dumbbells, kettlebells or a band. If you have anything like that around you, it is going to help you out massively. So do your very, very best to pick up something. Even a band like this can change your training entirely, and it's going to cost you less than £10 or €10 from Amazon. So getting something like that at the very least can make your home training that much more useful. So hamstrings, get ready. We're going to go through some exercise variations now. Okay, so the first and simplest variation we're going to use is a Romanian deadlift. Now, the purpose of this video is bodyweight, so I'm going to start off with bodyweight, and we're going to actually shift it more into a bit of a good morning. So ultimately, the best starting point for Romanian deadlift is getting form. I do have another video specifically on nailing the deadlift, but for this one, what we're going to do, just keep it simple. First option, put the weight in the heels, soften the knees, and try to push the bum back. Notice how my back is completely straight and I'm stretching the hamstrings here. This is the movement for your deadlift, which we want to try and get right. Now, if you have nothing to use, i.e. you have no dumbbells, you have no band, you have no kettlebells, anything like that, turn it into a bit of a good morning. So essentially what happens when you're in this position, the further the weight is away from the hamstring, the more tension there's going to be on the hamstring. So as you progress, if you can get that movement perfect, then maybe start doing it by crossing your hands over your chest. And what that's done is shift more mass, more weight further forwards, allowing me to stretch my hamstrings and get them loaded. Then maybe I can go above my head. There's a little bit more tension on my hamstrings there. Maybe I can then send my arms out forwards like so. I can hold a pillow, I can hold a couple of bottles of water, whatever it is to try and add weight. Now, if you do have any kind of dumbbells, kettlebells, anything like that, then same thing, soften the knees, push the bum backwards, stretch the hamstrings, and pull back up by squeezing the glutes. If you only have a band, the cheapest option, stand over the top of the band like so, and do exactly the same thing. Soften the knees, push the bum back, full stretch, power back up. Push the bum back, full stretch, power back up. Very, very simple way of doing a Romanian deadlift. Great hamstring and glute exercise with body weight or limited equipment. Now, once we've mastered that first movement, the Romanian deadlift, we can adjust it into a single leg variation. Now, there's a number of ways to do this. Simplest thing, start with body weight. You're mimicking that exact same movement, like so. The simplest way to turn it into a single leg is to lift one foot off the floor and just place the toe on the floor here. So that's just there for balance. There's no weight on it. I can take it off the floor at any point, and I'm going to do the same thing. Sticking my bum out, stretching the hamstring and glute, and I use that back foot to help me balance. Okay? That for me is the best way to do it, because you will see people doing this, but generally what happens is they lose their balance and there's not very much rep quality there. So I find just placing that one leg down, loading this grounded leg properly, you can run through that range of motion. Now again, if you have dumbbells or a kettlebell or a barbell, you simply hold them in exactly the same way. Back foot down, stretch and squeeze, stretch and squeeze. And the same is true if you have a band. Pop it underneath that grounded leg. Foot goes back for balance, stick the bum out, weight in the heel, stretch and squeeze, stretch and squeeze. Now obviously with your single leg stuff, make sure you do an even number of reps on both sides. And it was worth noting in that situation that most of us are going to have one leg or one arm stronger than the other one. If so, train the weakest one first, do the maximum number of reps you can do on that with the weight you have, and then use that number to limit how many your stronger leg can do. So even if you think, let's say your left leg is your weaker leg, you can do 15 reps on your weak leg, but your strong leg can do 20. Still stop it at 15, because eventually, by maintaining the strength on the strong leg, the weaker leg is going to catch up, and then they're going to be even, and then you can move to 16, 17, 18, etc., etc. So that is a single leg Romanian deadlift. Okay, the next movement we're going to look at, and this is slightly more equipment dependent, is a hamstring curl on a bench. This can also be done on a floor, but if you can lie on the end of an open sofa or you have a bench or something you can lie on, it will allow a slightly greater range of motion, but I'll show you the one on the floor after either way. Now, what we want is a dumbbell or something we can put between our feet, anything that's got a bit of weight to it. We're gonna hold it between the inner curve of our feet. We're gonna run through this, and we're gonna lie down on the front of the bench with our knees just hanging over the edge. Okay, so now you can see I'm holding on to that dumbbell between my feet. I'm gonna slowly lower down. Notice how I'm pointing my toes as I get to the bottom to get full range of motion, and then I squeeze back up. Slowly lower down, stretch it, squeeze back up. Slowly lower down, stretch it, and squeeze back up, and then gently popping it back down on the floor when we're done. Now, as I say, you can also do this one on the floor. The only difference is your range of motion becomes a little bit limited, but it is an option that you can use should you wish. So same thing applies. We lie down, we take the dumbbell between our feet, we curl up, and we slowly lower it back down. Tap the dumbbell on the floor, slightly limited range, all the way back down. Okay, so that is the dumbbell hamstring curl. Now, if you don't have dumbbells, but you do have the band, like this, you can do exactly the same thing, only what you're gonna do is attach the band to something like this, lie on the bench or the floor, and you pop your feet through it instead. Now, for the sake of this video, I'm not going to pull that rack because all that will happen is that dipping rack will fall over. But you get the idea. You're gonna stretch back, down there, and then pull back up, flexing all the way to the bum. The only reason I'm not is because if I do, as I say, that dipping rack is gonna fly up and hit me in the head, which I don't want to do, as funny as that'll be for video. So, those are your options for a hamstring curl with bands or with dumbbells. All right, our next variation of the isolated hamstring curl is similar in necessity of equipment to that lying hamstring curl I just showed you. This time, we're gonna do it seated. So you can take a dining room chair, something like that, and again, you're going to need your band. Wrap it around a table leg, jam it under a sofa leg, or similar, like so. We take a seat and place our feet through the band. Now, I haven't tested this before the video, but I'll put a couple of weights on the other end just to make sure. You want your anchor point to be fixed. And what we're gonna do, we stretch out and squeeze back. Now, this one for me is not optimal because you're not getting a real good stretch at the end, but it's an option. What I would say is making sure you're fully squeezing at the back here to really get the hamstrings contracted properly. It's a messy option, but it's an option nonetheless, and you can optimize it by having the right height seat and enough tension on the band attached to something that isn't necessarily going to flick and fall over. So that is a seated hamstring curl. You get the idea. You'll be able to figure that one out based on what you have at home if you have it. All right, the next bodyweight hamstring exercise is going to be a slider curl. So this one, for most of you, is going to require a shiny floor, like a wooden flooring, something like that, where your feet are going to slide easily. Also, try to wear socks on it. If, like me, you have a carpet or turf, it's going to be quite challenging. So you're going to need some pretty strong hamstrings to be able to do this like I do on the demo here. But on a shinier floor, smoother floor, you're going to be better off. So what we're going to do, we're going to take a position down on our back on the floor, like so. We want to push our heels into the floor. And what we're going to try and do essentially is curl our legs towards us whilst lifting the hips off the floor, okay? So my hips come off the floor, got my hands out for stability. I'm going to contract my hamstrings, keeping my hips up, then stretch back out. Contract my hamstrings, curl against my body, stretch back out. Contract my hamstrings, stretch back out. Notice how I'm not dropping my bum every time. I'm keeping it up high. I'm moving through that range of motion. So that is a slider curl. As I say, much easier to do on a shiny floor. So pick the room in your house well.